I think of weight loss as kind of the gateway drug to life coaching, because what I teach is like a meta skill that you can take with you into any area of your life. So when I coach my clients on weight loss, it translates into other areas. We talk about relationships, we talk about business building, we talk about unconditional love and self-love and self-confidence, and so many other just really fun and interesting things, right? Learning to process emotions, all of that. So I'm doubling down on weight loss, because whether you want to lose 5 pounds or 50 pounds or 100 pounds, right? I think we as women have always been conditioned, right, that we have to focus on our bodies. And when we're busy focusing on our bodies, we're not doing other things in our life. When I was diagnosed with breast cancer and went through all that, I started thinking about, like, what have I done? What have I lived the life I wanted? And I was like, well, in some respects, yeah, but I was not living intentionally. And so now I have decided I'm living so much more intentionally in my life, and it's pretty amazing, right? So, just all that being said, I just want to preface it with today I want to talk about why it's so hard to lose weight, and whether you're currently looking to lose weight, or you've just lost some and you want to keep it off. Maybe you want to develop a better relationship with food. That's what I'm here to talk to you about today. Okay, so let's talk first about the 3 reasons you haven't successfully lost weight yet. So the first reason is over desire, right? We allow the pleasure loving primitive part of our brain to determine our decisions, instead of using our prefrontal cortex to help us make much more rational choices. The second thing is over hunger. So we fuel our bodies in a way that human bodies were never meant to be fueled. We snack, eat mini meals, which keep our insulin levels just chronically elevated, right? And so when this happens, our bodies just don't have the chance to access the fat stores we have in our bodies. And we feel hungry just way too often, right? It feels super uncomfortable, like it's an emergency, right? You've gotten that hangry feeling. And then the third reason is emotional eating. So we don't view food as fuel, right? Instead, we eat when we're happy and we eat when we're sad, right? We drown our sorrows with food. We entertain ourselves with food. We find connection with others with food. We celebrate with food, right? Hello, cake, birthday cake, cookies, ice cream. But the good news is that you can lose the weight and you can keep it off permanently. You just need to know why you're not losing weight. Because once you really understand the why, then you can work on the how, right? To create that change for good. So to really understand the over desire, we first really have to understand how our brains work. Okay, so in a super simplified explanation, there are 2 parts of the brain involved in our decision making, right? We've got our limbic system, which is a very primitive, very animalistic part of our brain, and then we've got our prefrontal cortex. Okay, so the limbic has been around since the dawn of time, right? Its sole purpose, its only job, is to keep us alive. And it's motivated by 3 main things, the motivational triad. Totally focused on these 3 things. Animal, the primitive brain, does not care about anything else, right? I like to compare it to a toddler with a knife. My coach taught me this, is so fun. Like, toddlers, super cute, super sweet. They just mean well, right? But without proper supervision, a toddler with a knife can do some serious damage, right? So the prefrontal cortex is the more evolved part of the brain. It's the part that makes us human, okay? So the prefrontal cortex allows us to think rationally, plan for our future, make really good decisions about our life, right? And to think about what we're thinking about. Kind of meta, right? It's like the watcher of our brain. And the prefrontal cortex is also like the supervising mother of the toddler with a knife. Okay, so the motivational triad, three main jobs: avoiding pain, seeking pleasure, and being super, super efficient and just expending minimal energy. Okay, so toddler with a knife. I have a 3-year-old granddaughter, and she likes to do a lot of crazy, dangerous things. She jumps around, she likes to climb on things I'm not really on board with. So when I'm supervising her and I see her running with a knife, we'll say, never happened yet, maybe a fork, the rational thinking from her, my rational thinking from my prefrontal cortex, right, allows me to provide boundaries that protect her. Here's the thing, I'm going to say to her, I'm going to be like, hey, sweetie, I know you really want to play with that knife. It looks so fun, but it's got a sharp edge. It can really hurt you. I'm going to take this away because it's my job to keep you safe. And you can cry and throw a tantrum all you want. And you're oh so cute and I love you so, so much. But it's totally a no from me, right? So our prefrontal cortex is the supervisor of our primitive brain. And we don't have to be mean to it. We don't have to do all the mean self-talk when we're telling it no. Okay, so eating food, back to the food, it provides us with pleasure, right? Seek pleasure. So when we eat food that's fuel for our body, our brain releases dopamine, lights up the reward center in our brain, makes us feel good, right? And it totally makes sense that eating food is pleasurable, right? Because without it, we would totally starve to death. Right? So our brain is programmed to take note of a pleasurable experience so it can encourage us to repeat that action and therefore experience the pleasure again and again, right? And you think about it, back in the cave, you had to have motivation to go out and get food. You had to seek that pleasure. And back then eating an apple gave you a really nice hit of dopamine and it felt good, right? So our brain encourages this by creating desire for fuel food. So up until a few hundred years ago, this was how we consumed food, right? We would go eat food and then we'd rest for a while. But then we as humans figured out how to increase the pleasure in our food by concentrating it. The two main concentrated forms are sugar and flour, right? So food manufacturers took that to a whole new level. And they grind the substance down to provide us with so much more intense pleasure than if we just go consume the same foods in their natural form, like that apple, right? Got a delicious, a perfectly whole, wonderful, lovely food, and now we've condensed it down to apple juice with this huge, like all the sugar and this huge hit of dopamine, right? So the primitive brain is just doing its job when it takes note of that huge amount of pleasure we get. And then it creates a huge amount of desire to continue to repeat it. So that's why it's so hard to say no to the brownies or cake that someone brought into the office for Sherry's birthday party, right? Every week it's somebody else's damn birthday. Gotta bring in the snacks, right? And we blame the snacks on us, getting off our diet. But here's the thing. When we do decide to go on a diet to lose weight, we are still going to experience this high amount of desire, right? So instead of acting on it and eating the brownie, we try to use willpower to make a different decision and avoid eating it. Okay? Works sometimes in the short term, right? The problem is that willpower is like a muscle. It gets fatigued. So research shows that we are not capable of keeping willpower up indefinitely, okay? So once the willpower weakens, often in the evening after a long day of resisting desires all day long, we give in and then we meet the urge and we eat the foods that we have such an over desire for. Puts us right back in the cycle, right? Primitive brain overemphasizing the importance of these concentrated foods creates too much desire for them. So it feels like a never-ending cycle, right? It makes our experience of losing weight miserable, right? Think of the other part of the motivation. I feel like I have hair. The other part of the motivational triad is to avoid pain. So when you're restricting and depriving yourself throughout the day using willpower, freaks your brain out with that too, right? Never ending cycle. So the solution to that is to reduce the over desire for food. There's some different ways to do that. The best way to reduce over desire is to stop eating sugar and flour, okay? Just stop eating it. When the primitive urges, right, to eat the sugar and flour are not met, then the brain stops creating the urges. Like your toddler throwing a fit. If you continue to give in to the toddler, it knows that as long as it throws a fit, you're eventually going to give in and give it the knife back or the candy bar in the checkout aisle. That's my usual analogy, right? But when you stop rewarding, eventually the toddler, and I know this because I have 3 children who are grown adults, when I stopped giving into their urges, eventually they just knew. When mom says no, it's just a no, right? They knew I still loved them. Right? So this is neuroplasticity, creating new thought patterns in our brain. So just like consuming the sugar and flour help create those connections that drive the over desire, not consuming sugar and flour will allow those connections to dissolve. Okay? And so another way to reduce the over desire is to make those decisions ahead of time. So when you plan the food you're going to eat in advance, it's so easy just to know what you're going to eat in the moment. It's always pre-planned. You don't have that decision fatigue in the moment where your animal brain's like, just grab those donuts, grab that brownie, right? You've already made all the decisions using your prefrontal cortex, so you know you can trust your plan, right? And then when you make decisions in the moment, that's your primitive brain. It takes over with justifications and it convinces you, right, that, oh, one piece of cake won't matter, won't make a difference. You've been doing so good, right? Such a poisonous thought. So it's really important to stay aware of these urges from the primitive brain and approach them with patience and compassion. And that's what I work with my clients on, is really learning how to allow urges to make them disappear, okay? So nothing's going wrong when your brain offers you foods that are not on your plan, right? Just understanding the urges, that they're just unintentional programming in the brain, can really help you be much more patient with yourself as your new neural pathways are being built and reinforced, okay? And then the third reason is over hunger, right? So when you're consuming sugar and flour on the regular, which most people do since it's hidden in just about every processed food, your sensations of hunger are very, very intense. Like, I've often thought of it like, oh my God, my stomach is like eating itself. Have you ever felt that? Like that hangry feeling, hungry and angry at the same time, right? And then you feel like, oh my God, I need to make this hunger go away. It's an emergency. You know, I'm hungry, get out of the way, I need to eat, right? I can't even deal. So some people also experience lightheadedness or worry they might faint, okay? So this is what happens when our bodies are being a sugar burner, okay? That means that your body prefers to make you feel physically terrible so that you'll eat something super easily digestible and as energy, like sugar and flour, right? So it would much rather utilize these foods for energy that actually access the fat stores and turn fat into energy, right? So if you think about it, the food you eat is like your body going to the fridge. Like, just open the fridge, eat that food. Teaching your body to go to your fat stores to burn fat for fuel is like going out in the freezer in the garage, defrosting dinner, putting it in the oven, cooking it, right? So if you think of it like that, yes, your body wants to be efficient. It wants to just burn the sugar. It wants to just burn the foods that you are constantly putting in your body, okay? So it really prefers that easily digestible energy that you provide to it, right? So when you're hungry all the time, right, or very frequently, you end up eating all the time. And I've gone through diets where it's like you have to eat 5 times a day, right? You got to keep your metabolism going. But what happens is eating that food stimulates the insulin secretion, right? So insulin is a fat storage hormone. So the more insulin in your bloodstream, right, then the less then your body, I'm getting all technical here, the less your body can go in and access your fat cells, right? So when you're eating on a frequent basis, like you're snacking or eating mini meals every few hours, or sometimes we'll be like, well, I just want to drink. We're focused on calories, right? We've been brought up reading calories and counting calories, but our bodies don't recognize it in that way, right? So we drink like this 500 calorie latte, and then we just nibble and bite and keep our insulin levels up the rest of the day, chronically elevated, right? So you're almost never in fat burning mode. You're almost always in fat storage mode. So also sleep is very important. It's the only time that you're really, like, you're allowing your body to use your fat stores for energy is when you're sleeping, if you're constantly eating throughout the day. So the solution, and there's a big long fancy word for it, gluconeogenesis, right? But we can train our bodies to break down our body fat and convert that fat to glucose for our cells to use for energy. And instead of being a sugar burner, you want to become fat adapted. Okay, so when you're fat adapted, your body is very willing and happy to go in and utilize, take the energy from the fat stores. So when you are fat adapted and you're no longer a sugar burner, you'll feel hunger, but it doesn't feel intense or like a big deal at all. It's totally tolerable. You start feeling a little bit of hunger. It feels like a whisper, like a suggestion from your body to eat something, right? It's not like you're being like knocked over the head, punched in the gut, you need to eat right now kind of hunger. Like you could totally eat if it's convenient, but if not, it's not really a big deal. It just feels like a little wave that comes in and goes out, right? Your body's super happy. We call it dining in. So when you're fat adapted, and I do intermittent fasting, I just stretch my breakfast later or eat dinner earlier, whatever. You're stretching that window. And we call it dining in. Oh, I'm feeling a little hungry right now. And I'm just going to tell my body to go dine in, have a little piece of my ass. That's fine with me, right? So your body will do that when you're fat adapted, right? So we think we're broken because we haven't been able to lose weight and keep it off. But luckily, we were born with this ability, right, to perform this fat adaptation or the gluconeogenesis. We just have to remind our bodies how to do it, okay? So stop snacking is one way, okay? And like I said, we've been trained, like, keep those levels up. Oh, I feel lightheaded. Like people think, oh, I feel like lightheaded, I'm hungry. That's because you're a sugar burner, right? So yes, you're gonna feel lightheaded. So just recognizing that and becoming aware of how your body actually works really helps to start to change the way you're eating and the way you're looking at eating, right? So tweaking your meals so that you get enough foods that just satiate you, right? That you're not hungry in between meals. And intermittent fasting, like I mentioned before, that's a tool that you can use. It's an amazing tool. I use it. I've noticed personally. So I started for quite a while. I was eating between like 12 or 1 and 5 or 6. Somewhere in there. That was just my eating window. And then I just didn't eat in between. And I had really good, like lots of veggies and protein and fat, and ate enough to just feel really comfortable so I wasn't hungry in between. And I've since started decreasing, what's the word for that? Decreasing that eating window, right? So now I'm moving towards eating between like 3 and 7. So I have like a 4 to 5 hour eating window later in the day. I go through most of the day and I'm not even hungry, right? So I'm playing around with it, right? And when you're in it, again, for the long term, for the long haul, making tweaks and changes and playing around with what you're eating and see what's working and what isn't working, takes away all that urgency we feel when we just want to lose weight now, right? So I love intermittent fasting, and especially like some people work long shifts. Maybe you work a long shift at work, and you're like, this might be a perfect time for me to do intermittent fasting. Maybe you even go, like maybe you eat breakfast, a nice big breakfast, maybe have a snack in a couple hours, and then go all night into the next day. I don't know. It's all an experiment, okay? So as we're running short on time here, I want to go into emotional eating, okay? Emotional eating is the other reason, and that's really defined as like eating for any reason other than to fuel your body. So there are countless reasons why we eat that have absolutely nothing to do with fueling our bodies, right? We eat when we're bored. We eat when we're sad. We eat to entertain ourselves. It's our companion when we're lonely. We cheer ourselves up with food, right? We try to take the edge off the stress in our day. Sometimes it's just a habit. Like if you keep a dish of candy on your desk, you're going to keep reaching for it, right? It's just habits, right? We celebrate. All of our celebrations revolve around food. We connect with friends over dinner and drinks, right? We reward ourselves, right? We're like, oh, I'm going to lose weight, so I'm going to have a piece of cake or whatever. But so we're just training ourselves that food is a reward, right? So there's just endless ways that we eat emotionally. So this is so funny because I think about how I never thought of myself as an emotional eater. I just thought there was something wrong with me. I just like food. I like food. I like this food. I can't stop. I don't have an off switch. But now, when I really started becoming aware and noticing, I realized, oh yeah, total emotional eater, right? And when I call myself an emotional eater, that feels terrible. So back to how our thoughts, this isn't this training, but the way I train, our thoughts control everything. So if you think I'm an emotional eater, you're going to feel emotional. You're going to feel powerless, right? Instead of sometimes I eat when I'm feeling sad. Sometimes I eat when I'm feeling whatever. And I'm working on it. Whatever. Just a little sidebar on that, right? So the solution to emotional eating is learning to process your emotions, okay? Learning how to feel our feelings. It's super important to really understand, just as our bodies were designed to be fat adapted, our bodies were also designed to feel emotion, okay? There's no emotion, no feeling that's going to kill us. There's just not. We have the power to just process our emotions. So to feel better, we don't need to eat. We just need to manage our thinking, okay? So the way I teach with the model, right, is that there are circumstances and we get to choose whatever thought we want to choose about them. And it doesn't mean it has to be a happy thought, right? It just means that we can think a thought that creates sadness for us. It's totally okay. It's okay to feel sad. We just need to learn to process that emotion, feel it in our body, allow it to just process through. When you resist an emotion, if you resist feeling an emotion, or you try to slap a happy thought over the thought that's creating the sadness for you, that's not going to last, right? Think about resisting feelings like if you're in a pool and you have a beach ball and you're trying to hold that beach ball underwater. And at first it's okay. I'm not even really paying attention. I'm just holding the beach ball underwater. But you get more tired and exhausted and fatigued, kind of like that willpower, and then suddenly the ball just bursts out of the pool, right? We react in some way. So what we need to do is just learn to allow our emotions. Let that ball just float on the surface, right? Let's just let it be there with us. It's just floating around. We're feeling our feelings. It's all okay, right? And an urge is simply a feeling. An urge is just that feeling we get when we're thinking thoughts about over desire, okay? So that's what I have for you today. I wanted to really share with you why. Because once you can become aware of what it is that's going on in your body, when you're overeating, when you're restricting, why diets don't work. Diets don't work for the restriction and the deprivation piece of it. And also you want to lose weight the way that you want to live your life. Okay? You don't want to live the rest of your life feeling deprived and restricted. So the way I teach weight loss is you plan ahead of time. Like, we're not in a hurry here either. Like, we decide right away, this is a long game. There's no shortcuts to this. So we're going to practice. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set a protocol. Thinking ahead with your prefrontal cortex. This is what I will eat tomorrow, and only this. And you make that plan doable, right? If on a scale of 1 to 10, if you think, well, tomorrow I think I'm about, an 8 or 9, 10, that I will be able to stick to this plan, beautiful. That's your plan then. And you can put foods on it that you like. The first step is to learn how to plan ahead, follow your protocol, eat only what's on your protocol, and start to notice the urges that come up when you're not eating, when it's not on your protocol, and learn to allow the urges, right? Remember, decondition those urges. Like Pavlov's dog, like the toddler in the checkout aisle. If that urge stops being answered, like, and you want to, and so like if your toddler's throwing a fit in the checkout aisle, you don't like smack it upside the head and tell it to shut up. Some people do. But you say, no, it's a no from me. And you just let your child throw the fit. It's okay. Like, I love you so much. You're super cute. I'm hoping you stop that fit soon. But I'm going to let it run its course, right? And when you can start doing that with your urges, they'll become fewer and less strong, right? That over desire, less severe, less like feeling like an emergency when you do that, right? So as you're writing your protocol, and then when you teach yourself how to allow the urge and not react to it and just go about your day, right? Then we can start playing with the food protocol. Okay, this is what we want to do. Maybe the next step then is to cut out the sugar and flour. If maybe you've been someone who eats a lot of sugar and flour, let's cut that out next, okay? And you've already practiced allowing urges. Now you're going to practice, after you've cut the sugar and flour out, they're going to be very intense. That may take 2 to 6 weeks even for you to really get your body to where you're not craving. You don't have that just over desire. So then once you do that, then maybe go to intermittent fasting, right? It's really hard to if you just cut out sugar and flour, it's really hard then to just jump right into intermittent fasting, because you're just like throwing your body all kinds of shit. Throw your brain all kinds of shit, right? So when you're in it for the long game, you can make these small changes as you go along and just learn to just relax the weight off. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. So those are the steps to get you going. I suggest the first thing you do is start writing a protocol for yourself, something that's doable, something, maybe give yourself, if you're used to eating 2 candy bars while you're at work, maybe give yourself 1 candy bar. See what happens, right? Learn to allow the urges and go from there. So thank you so much for being here today and for watching this video. And if you're looking for any one-on-one help, I'm happy to help. And just send me a message and we'll hop on a call together and see what we can do. And yeah, good luck with that. Love yourself first. Just like you're going to love that toddler, that toddler throwing a fit, you have to learn to love yourself as well. Have compassion for yourself. That's a different video. But yes, that is a huge part of it. Okay? All right. Love you guys. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.